are you today?
I'm good. Yourself?
Pretty good. My name is Rainer. I'm doing a project at my school. My class is called Early Buddhism, and we're studying the Theravada school, to be specific. I called you here, where I asked if I could meet with you today and have a really cool conversation about what Buddhism means to you from an expert. So if you could please introduce yourself, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, though.
Thanks for having me.
The both way to explore.
Yeah.
My name is Bhante Chandima.
Very cool.
And I'm a Buddhist monk at this temple, Ottawa Theravada Buddhist Vihara. And we'll start with this small thing.
Yeah. Small talk, everybody loves that, right?
Yeah.
So I've never interviewed anybody before, so forgive me if it's a little
No problem.
off the cusp. So you mentioned it's the Theravada school?
Theravada school.
Theravada school, that's the school of Buddhism that you're a monk of? Is that
Yes.
correct? A monk, and now the correct term is that bhikkhuni?
Bhikkhu.
Bhikkhu? Okay.
Pali term.
Okay. Okay, so how long have you been practicing? How long have you been a monk for?
Ever since I became a monk. I became a monk when I was 12.
Wow.
That was in 1997. So it's been almost like 23 years.
Very cool.
It's some time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I imagine.
Yeah.
Well, they say everything in this life is hours put into it, right? So
Yes.
if you must have a very good, quite an extensive knowledge at this point. Being a monk, I find that really interesting.
Mm.
I guess one of my first questions that I'd like to ask you is, in all of your lifetime as a monk, what teaching have you come across that you find is the most important? Like if you could sum it up to, this is the most important teaching, what would you say that is?
Interesting. I think the most interesting teaching that I have come across is mental purification. We call it the process of getting us out from the defilements. The mental impurities are always troubling us, like greed, hatred, and delusion, or craving, measuring, and viewing. I mean, they have their own different interpretations in Buddhist teachings. So the teaching of mental purification, I mean, that's the main fundamental teaching of Buddhism, because Buddha says if you work on your mental purification, that will lead you to enlightenment. So secularly you are really good. You are a very hassle-free, problem-free person, trouble-free person. At the same time, you are leading yourself to enlightenment. We call it nirvana, nibbana. So I think that's the teaching that blew me away. As a practitioner monk.
Yeah. So purification of the mind.
Purification of the mind.
Interesting.
The whole teaching can revolve around the mindfulness teaching.
Yes.
Because it's this mental purification is a part of mindfulness. Yeah. We call it Pali Satipatthana. Satipatthana.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. It's interesting. I'm no kind of expert, but I try to follow mindfulness techniques in my own life, but my teacher said mindfulness is not an original Buddhist or at least or early Buddhist concept or teaching. Maybe not concept, but it wasn't an original idea. Would you say that Buddhism from the Theravada school has undergone evolution as well? Like, is it very much still like historic, classic teachings?
I think you asking a question about the stratification of the text. Usually we call different stages of the evolution of the text. Scholars call there is an early Buddhist period. so that some of the texts we always consider them to be the most authentic texts, and there were post-canonical texts. Let's say canon is the early Buddhism, and there were post-canonical texts that were like addendum, like kind of like interpreting books. But the Satipatthana teaching, I mean, that's I have a problem in like translating mindfulness. Like Satipatthana, I go by Pali because we had to look at Pali first. That's what Buddha used.
And I'm less than fluent.
That's okay, true. So Satipatthana means establishing your mindfulness, establishing your attention, basically attention plus your awareness. So I kind of like have a difficult time in bringing this term mindfulness into Satipatthana, literally, I mean, as a literal term, but in the West and across the globe, I think mindfulness, the word mindfulness is the word that everybody knows. So Satipatthana and this whole teaching about mindfulness, I mean, how to cultivate your thoughts, how to cultivate your all the other mental things, they are mentioned in the Satipatthana word, Satipatthana, teaching. So, and Satipatthana teachings can be seen in the early texts. So I don't think we cannot easily strip out that teaching to be something later. So which came later. So I don't know how your teachers said that based on what kind of a source. But I can say. We can see the reference to mindfulness in many places in the early texts, so there's no doubt. But the problem was the teachings of the Buddha, even those early texts, they were maintained to this day in different ways. The teachings of the Buddha, they were compiled into texts, I think in the 5th AD. So 5th century. Yeah. So before that it was oral. So this is the kind of problem. So after 5th century, you could see them in the text, in the books, in the oral leaves. Before that, it came in oral tradition. But definitely those early texts have mindfulness teaching. I can witness that thing. I have read multiple times. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, I like knowing that it's, egoistically, I like knowing that it's been there since the beginning, because I find it to be a very important concept. The distinction between attention and awareness is palpable.
It is. Yeah.
And I appreciate that. Oral traditions are not the most easy to go off of. My brother and I were somewhat indigenous, and we have similar histories. Where our oral histories are interpreted in different ways. But at the very least, it's still around. So I guess I appreciate that.
I don't know how we can take them from a historical point, because these teachings were, like in oral traditions at some time, and after some time they were in oral leaves, and after that time they were in the books. So when a certain teaching is, coming down to different, eras from different ways, it could face a lot of challenges. I'm not an expert about that thing, but I can definitely say early texts have this mindfulness teaching.
Well, continue off of that. What would you say is, this might be a difficult question, but what would you say is the least important teaching? Not that it's not important, but what would you say is like, pay attention to these ones above these ones? I don't know a better way to describe that.
It depends on the individual, kind of the Buddhist individual who practices, different teaching. Let's say, now you are a layperson. If you are a Buddhist practitioner, and the teachings, kind of teachings you want to look up and then want to learn and practice, they could be different from my perspective, because
True.
I'm a monk at this point. And even among the lay people, those lay people, they might be spending lives at different stages, depending on social issues, depending on their personal issues. So that's why I cannot say that this could be the most important, this could be the least important as a whole. So it kind of depends on the person and kind of the stage of life. But technically, I would say, if someone asks from us as a normal person, okay, I'm new to Buddhist teachings, where could I start? I would definitely say you could start from Sutta. Don't go to Abhidhamma, in the first place. Start Sutta, because that's the most important, and then to improve your knowledge and improve your practitioner perspective, you can look up and then study Abhidhamma.
Can you explain what Sutti and Abhidhamma are?
So in today's Tripitaka, called the Canon, we could see three branches. Sutta, the discourses. Abhidhamma is the, how do I say, further explanations about the sutta. And Vinaya is a discipline. So these three make up the Tripitaka. So if a layperson approaches a temple and asks, where could I start reading the canon? I would definitely say you could start from Sutta. Vinaya is mostly for the monks and nuns, monastic community, and I don't need to read that at this point.
Yeah, unless you decide to become a monk.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes, but even you are a layperson, if you are really interested, maybe later, not now.
For sure.
But there's a problem nowadays. Some people are going to start reading Abhidhamma first. Abhidhamma are the deeper
reflections on
of the sutta.
text. Yeah.
So they might be in trouble at some point. They kind of like get lost in reading Dhamma.
It's like learn the basics first.
Basics first, and then slowly taking you to
basics are important. Yeah, for sure. Cool. That was a cool answer. Could you tell us a little bit about your meditative practices? I'd certainly love to know, perhaps learn something new myself. I mean, all I do when I meditate is I just try to practice mindlessness, When I walk around in my day, I practice mindfulness, but when I'm meditating, I try and, be as quiet as possible. I understand there's a distinction between Samatha and Vipassana. Yes. So perhaps you could tell me which one you would recommend to other people, or start from there maybe. Okay.
So before I go on to different meditation techniques, I would say meditation is a great part of the Buddhist practice, because if anyone who really wants to be a follower of the Buddha, because when you practice the Buddhist teachings, you're going to be a follower of the Buddha. But there may be people who don't want to be a follower of the Buddha, but still want to do the meditation perspective. Regardless of that kind of a change, meditation really gives a lot of benefits, physically, mentally. They all are interconnected.
Absolutely.
So we do meditations all the time, every day as a monk. But it depends on what time, depending on the schedules, different days. But we certainly do. We have different meditation techniques for the monks and nuns. But because you asked me about the main, two meditation practices, we call them Samatha and Vipassana.
Would you mind? Sorry to interrupt. Would you mind explaining the distinction?
Yeah, I'm gonna.
I'm sorry.
So Samatha was not an original innovation of the Buddha. It was there even before the Buddha.
Okay.
So it was a long practice meditation. Mainly in the Samatha meditation, what happens is that one is going to minimize 5 hindrances. We call them Panchanivarna in Pali. I would say Kama Chanda, sensual, excessive sensual pleasures. That's one of the goals to do in the meditation. Second is Vyapada, ill will, thoughts of destroying other beings in different ways. And Tinamida, sloth and torpor, could be heaviness of the mind and the body. So when your body is heavy, when your mind is heavy, they both carry troubles to the mind. And then Uddacha Kukucha, that means restlessness of the mind. And Kukucha means remorse. You are regretful about what you did. And the last one called Vichikicha, doubts. So Samatha, the aim of the Samatha is to get rid of, overcome these 5 hindrances. There are 40 objects of meditation for this Samatha to reach to a point where someone is really hassle-free with these 5 hindrances. We call them Samachattalis, Kammatthana. There are different ways one can reflect upon different things. It depends on, that's why Buddha says one has to approach a teacher. That teacher has to assess the person and then give the right object to meditate. But the aim of all the Samatha meditators is to overcome 5 hindrances. When it comes to Vipassana, it's an innovation of the Buddha. Its main innovation is to eliminate all the defilements, basically from greed, hatred, and delusion, called Lobha, Dosa, Moha. So that's the main thing. Some people only do Samatha. Some people may need to do Samatha first because they want to first calm them and then do Vipassana. So some people directly go to Vipassana. They naturally have the capacity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you say that much like the Gita? Did I say that properly? As we were discussing previously, would you say this is the Samatha is more like the basics?
Samatha is, I think, is the fundamental meditation practice to everybody. It's like this. There are people who are already calm. They can certainly go to the Vipassana, right away.
True.
But there are people who are always troubled.
Yeah.
They are not mentally relaxed, calm. So they will start from Samatha, and then at a certain point they can move on to Vipassana under the recommendation of a teacher.
Cool. They got to still their waters first.
Still the water first, and then
Interesting.
You have to get rid of the moss and.
yeah. You get that. Might be a strange question now, but do you have a preference between the two in your own life? Like, do you find more comfort in Samatha or in?
Well, I'm sure that most of the monastics, they are already calm and they are in the practice of Vipassana, and there are different teachings about Vipassana. Like mostly we see Vipassana, the basic meaning of Vipassana is seeing things as they are. Because in the normal society, majority, many people, they are seeing things as they are, not seeing things as they are. As we are. I mean, that's what many people look at.
Yeah.
Seeing things as we are is the normal majority way of looking at anything. But Vipassana is seeing things as they are.
Their truth, the inner truth of things.
Yeah. I mean, for instance, I would say from an objectivity point of view. Now, for example, I would say a Buddha statue, this Buddha statue made of marble. Now, if someone is more subjective, always can have a perspective of looking at Buddha statue with a previous experience of another Buddha statue. But if we always look at one object with a previous understanding, we might lose its pristine, distinct nature. So Buddha says, through Vipassana, we are trying to see the distinct, unique perspective it carries. That's a really good thing. That's what happens in Vipassana. In order that to happen, Buddha says we have to use a couple things. 3 universal characteristics. Anicca, Dukkha, Anatta. Anicca is being able to being able to see any change of anything.
Mm-hmm.
I think in our society, in our life, we only want to see the positive changes, not the negative, not the mixture of those both. Buddha says all the time, try to have a perspective of being able to look at any change that can happen, including you, any object, person. Second, the nature of dissatisfaction of that object, that person. What happens to many is that we are shifting our happiness, and then we say we are happy, we shift. But if you're gonna continue being that, we might not say the same thing.
Yeah.
So the nature of dissatisfaction, because we shift the objects, right? And then the third one is anatta, is that not self. Buddha's taught anatta to understand the nature of non-identification, because we identify things to be us, but the moment we deconstruct the connection between the object and us, there will be the happiness. We call it non-identification, called anatta. So because our plan is to see things as they are, in order to make that happen, we have to use the three universal characteristics for everything, including us. Anicca, we have to be able to should be able to see any change that can happen within, around, beyond. And then if someone is not trying to see that, there will be dissatisfaction, suffering, that nature, understanding that nature, and then non-identification with the object. So if someone can use these three perspectives, that will really help that person to see things, or see that particular thing as it is, or things as they are. That's Vipassana. Real Vipassana is that.
I really like that. I don't adhere to any particular religion, but a really core concept that I've come across in my own life is that of perspective. So I really appreciate your consideration of that subject. For example, I had a class last year, and it was a philosophy class, and the subject was phenomenology. Phenomenology, if you're not aware, is the concept of I don't want to butcher my understanding of phenomenology is of the multifaceted perspective of anything. The looking at you from this angle, looking at you from here, it's all puzzle pieces part of the whole, and the more puzzle pieces you can appreciate, the better your understanding is. So the concept of perspective has always been hugely important to me. Even before I was aware, that's what I was appreciating. So I find that really interesting.
Yeah, it is. I think it really helps us to understand us and everybody else, because we always, I have a kind of an understanding when it comes to this phenomenology and all different perspectives. People see the goodness of everybody, anyone, from one perspective, but people can be differently good.
Yes, yeah, that's a good point.
So I think if we really want to be wise, if we really want to get to this Vipassana thinking, we should be able to see that different good nature.
Because it could be entirely alien to us. What somebody's good intentions are, if you try to analyze them from your own perspective. I really appreciate that. I love that idea. Would you say that the Theravada school of Buddhism has changed a lot since its origination? Would you say better, or for the better, or for the worse, if so?
I think there are some changes you can see. Well, I mean, by not that much on the side of the text, but these days there are a lot of discussions going on about the text. One could be the authentic Buddhist text. There are some evolutionary things happening, but I would say what could be the right terming for that? I would say Theravada Buddhism has been deterritorialized. Let's say the Theravada Buddhism in Sri Lanka, Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, and if you go to these countries and if you really want to do a research about the nature of the Theravada Buddhism in those countries, it could be different. But they might carry the same text, same canon in different languages. But how people practice it, and what are the most important parts of Theravada Buddhism in different countries, and the connection between the monastics and the devotees, and also some other hugely popular topics, religion and the state, how the so-called like people sometimes affecting the country's state. So there are different topics going on for a long time. But I wouldn't say that it has been changed by text, like the doctrine perspective. Rather, inside their cultures, we could see a lot of changes because the people of the country, the cultures of the country have impacted the kind of Theravada Buddhism they want inside the country. So I will use the word called deterritorialize it. They deterritorialize depending on where they live. But in the West, it's different. Like they also study Theravada Buddhism from scholarly point and from a non-scholarly point. They mainly go to the text and then try to find out what is the Theravada Buddhism like from the text.
Would you say that there's something lost in looking at it from a purely academic perspective? Would you say that there's something that, say, myself or my teachers or my classmates might something integral that perhaps we're missing in looking at it in a perhaps mostly academic perspective? I can't speak to the mindset of my peers, but I imagine there are some people, at least in the class, that are looking at it purely as like academia.
I definitely think that when a student or researcher studies Theravada Buddhism in the West, they should also be able to pay a visit to a Theravada country, a couple of Theravada countries, and see how this textualized Buddhism that we study in our own university in the West is how it is being practiced in those countries. So do we see any changes? Have they changed the original text? And how do they present now? I think it's really good for such academicians. Could make a visit, could get some hands-on experiences by visiting those countries, and then to make their perspective about Theravada Buddhism is not just a text, and it has different other cultures, and because other cultures, the ways and means how they practice could be different, and they get a good sense of how Theravada Buddhism, is like.
An additional perspective.
Yeah. So I don't think just limiting oneself to a book and then making an understanding about Theravada Buddhism could be a good idea. It's always good to check out and. Yeah,
certainly agree. I'd certainly love to visit any of these countries. I hope to visit all of them one day. So something from a significantly academic perspective, in class, one of the things that I found most interesting was that Buddhism had a very elegant way of gaining new followers.
It is used the word arrogant.
I'm sorry?
Arrogant or?
No, not adequate.
Adequate. Okay.
A very good way of gaining new followers.
Okay.
Like, for example, Christianity was prone to convert or die.
Okay.
Many cultures, many religions are prone to such conversionary tactics. But Buddhism, which I found really interesting and I really appreciate, what we learned in class was that it didn't disavow or try and get rid of other religions. It's still a samsaric religion, is that correct? So it's still a samsaric religion, and it doesn't try to discount Hinduism or anything like that. It in fact tries to incorporate it, which I thought was genius. Would you say that there are similar equivalencies to modern times? Like, from back in the day, they would do things like incorporate other religions. Would you say that there's a modern equivalent to that? saying like for example, I think the middle path. Again, not that I know what I'm talking about, but my understanding is the middle path is kind of like an appreciation, but not having to be
excessively attached to it.
Yeah, exactly. So to pass the floor over to you, would you say that there's a modern equivalency to the ability that Buddhism has traditionally had on incorporating other people?
I think this question goes to a subject we call whether Buddhism is a religion or a philosophy. I think it's long been said that Buddhism is not a religion or a philosophy. It's a way of life. So if anything is a way of life, I don't think there's no issue of incorporating it into other people who don't have a background, who may have a background, right? So, and there are like plenty of occasions where different religious people approach the Buddha, and then they listen to talks of the Buddha, and then at the end of the talk they were claiming that, okay, now I'm gonna give up my previous
my wealth and everything.
Yeah, and then Buddha said, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
Just continue. Yeah. Just continue, and but give some more perspectives of what I said to you. Because if you're gonna do that, religion has been an institutionalized thing nowadays, right? I don't think Buddhism is that much an organized religion, because there's no one person who can say that I'm the leader of the Buddhism. Like in other religions, they have kind of a organized structure.
The Pope or whatever.
Yeah. Structure. Because the text itself says you cannot convert people. You don't need to convert. It's a free place. Come and see. Ehipasiko. Come and see. If you don't like, just give it up. And then. But the thing is, people who give some time to take a look, they don't think that they want to go away. Yeah. Because it's very liberal. Yeah. In one of the suttas, Buddha said, "Do not believe anything by books. Do not believe anything. So do not believe anything by merely the books, by mere sayings of famous people, by tradition, by mere tradition, by mere other things, a lot of other means of knowledge." But Buddha did not, discount. Deny these means of knowledge. They all are equally important, because we learn from tradition, we learn from the books. But Buddha said, when you have something to solve, don't just only merely based on one perspective. If there's a question, spiritual question, but you're gonna solve that spiritual question by tradition only. So you might get lost. Yeah. So Buddha said it's a very liberal place. If you don't think that this might not work for you, you always have a chance to do whatever you want. But you certainly don't need to give up your previously held views and the things. Just continue.
So I can keep my Ferrari and still be a Buddhist.
I guess so.
I don't have a Ferrari.
In case you had it. So it's not a. I think it's sort of, as I said to you, it's not a religion nor a philosophy. It's a way of teaching. So this extreme freedom. At some point, I feel that people who bornly Buddhists, they take some advantage of this freedom too, because in other religions they have this, so-called powerful commandments. You must be like this.
Yeah, it's either you are or you are not.
Yes, you'll be punished, but I think this freedom, I think it's kind of extreme to some bornly Buddhists, and they may misuse it at some point.
Fair
but enough. A good person who has a lot of freedom, like someone who comes from a liberal perspective, this could be the best, I guess.
They won't abuse the freedom.
They won't abuse, and at the same time they will help use this freedom for their own liberation, both secular and transcendental. So I think that's the reason. That's why we don't see the Buddhists don't think that they want to affect other people to convert. I think,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. But there may be some extreme groups that could relate to all religions who might do some bad stuff by the name of the Buddha.
Yeah, fair enough.
For political reasons,
Yeah.
for their own things. But I'm not talking about them.
No.
I'm talking about generic good people, most of the majority.
Yeah.
So I don't think there is any such thing that I can see. It's pretty liberal, free.
I appreciate that. I like the idea of reaching but not grasping. You know, you're not you don't hold on too tight. You know, it's freeing, as you
Yeah,
said.
we call it upadana in Pali, grasping.
Can I try upadani?
Upadana.
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 Upadana means that you can have a Ferrari, but you are not you are not grasping the Ferrari.
Yeah.
You can use it, but you are mentally you can give up anytime you want. But some people they can.
Yeah, they
give
become
up
too attached to their possessions. Yeah.
Yes, that's the problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always been a big believer of not letting your possessions own you. I hope I'm not perfect with it, but I try very hard to achieve that.
It takes time. It's not an overnight teaching.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
All the teachings of the Buddhist Buddha, they take some time.
Mm-hmm. Many lifetimes, one might say.
Some teachings, some like paramita, perfections. If you want to be an enlightened being, it will take some lives. But benefits of meditation, benefits of the middle path, benefits of Vipassana, being a person who can see things as they are, objectivity, they will take time because all these things look to me they are habits. Now we have a bunch of habits. We need some time to change them for the positive sake. So are the things that we've been talking so far.
Yeah. Well, so this is a question. I'm gonna pose a question to you that I asked in class. What would you say to someone who, like myself being the example here, who appreciates several Buddhist teachings, and appreciates the idea of like wisdom and nirvana, but I also appreciate the natural world, and I'm not trying to cut myself off from it. Not that you yourself are, or Buddhism teaches that, of course. But to be specific, say I had the choice of whatever I wanted right now. I don't believe I would ever cut myself off from the cycle. I would just like to keep going round and round.
Yeah, samsara.
Yes,
Okay.
I would never want to remove myself from the circle, because even on my worst days, on the days where I'm so distraught or upset or whatever, I appreciate those days as a contrast, you know, and I would never want to remove myself from the cycle.
Yeah.
So in class, my teacher's answer was, "You will just never be enlightened." I don't think he meant it as a derogatory thing at all. I didn't take it as such. But I would like to believe that I could have both. What do you think?
Very good question. I think a lot of people, they are struggling to understand this thing. Buddha never said we all need to be enlightened. We all need to be an Arahant or Pacceka Buddha, Sambuddha. But Buddha always said to us, it's a choice. If you think you are not comfortable, if you are not happy, you always have a chance and opportunity to wish by doing good karma. What are the good karmas? Let's say there are a bunch of good karmas one can do. But if someone thinks, oh, I don't want to go on this recycling sansaric thing, and I never know, because it says that the last moment when you're going to die, it can affect your next life. Let's say you are a good person, but the moment you die, you come up with a bad thought, and that will take you to a different bad realm, kind of a bad realm. So because of this, huge uncertainty, Buddha said it's really good if everybody, if one can think about this teaching specifically to attain Nibbana, but Buddha never made it compulsory. But in your case, I understand that you want to make some stages of your life as a contrast to the person where you are now, and maybe the future. So I think when we deal with the sensual pleasures without being grasped, without being so much attached. We might sometimes, some of the individuals might think that, oh no, I don't want to attain Nibbana this lifetime. I want to enjoy my life in a very wholesome way. It's not wrong, because everybody can be an arahant. And I think the professor who told you that, oh no, it's you should always focus on Nibbana, may have said that because he or she might have seen the Buddhist teachings from this one perspective. But Buddha always said in many social type of his discourses, everybody has a different chance, opportunity. Everyone has their own choice, and may they execute their choice. But keep in mind, it's a samsara. You never know what's going to happen, who you will be. So you definitely do understand that ending the samsara will be much better. But if you want to take a risk, I think it's a journey with risk. But still, it's okay. Buddha never said all should do that. All should wish to be an arahant. But there are people who might want to be an arahant or attain nibbana, and like being in a future life. So
I appreciate the
many life ahead.
Yeah.
So there are always chances, opportunities for individuals. So there's no like one size fits in kind of a knowledge thing teaching that everybody should be like this. I think if Buddha had said that, it could have been really bad.
Yeah. I don't think he'd have as many followers. Yeah. Cookie cuttering is never a good philosophy.
Yeah.
So one of the central themes of the assignment I'm working on is that of appropriation. I oftentimes these days hear of appropriation as this negative concept of that's mine, you can't have it. I've always been a big believer of imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. So what would you say to people, and what is your own opinion of people who appropriate various aspects of Buddhism yet do not proclaim to be themselves Buddhist?
Okay. Yeah, I would like to start this answer from different perspective. From Hinduism.
Okay.
Now, the people who do the yoga in the West, now there is a long debate about this. The people who know the original authentic yogas, they say this is not the original yoga, and what may have happened is that the people in the Western world or other places, they have stripped out some interesting commercial type of things to the West, and they promote them commercially. Well, that's kind of a thing. I think the same applies to other religious things too. Now I understand meditation, mindfulness. Okay, mindfulness. It's a big hot topic nowadays.
Yeah, it's almost a religion of itself.
It could be someone's religion.
Yeah.
So not even mindfulness, but also compassion projects nowadays. I think mindfulness has been in the West for a long time, in the past few decades, but nowadays people talk about compassion. People aren't they have a blame for many. The people who really want to study mindfulness, they're gonna be mindful, but at the end of the day, they don't consider other people, because the material studies, secular studies have made them so competitive, so compelling, so that there is a conversation going on about we should teach people, like students, kindness, compassion. So like it could be a commercial project, but I think on one side I think we should make people aware about the original teaching of mindfulness and compassion. At the same time, we will have to adapt to the place where we are. Otherwise, we can't teach them, right? Now, as a monk, when I came to Canada far back, I had to think about the best ways to, impart my teaching to the people. It's not the same way I taught back in Sri Lanka, because back in Sri Lanka people are only Buddhist, and they have this big respect factor. Whatever the monk says, they have no problem, But in the West, you need to understand what people really want, what could really help them. And most of the people, they are very open-minded. I'm not saying people in there, they are open, but they have this faith factor more than the wisdom factor. So most of them. So then it's kind of a challenging thing. That's why I'm thinking, so original teaching, when it is taken to a different continent, part of the world, the exact theory is appropriation. One has to understand the best way to present it without harming its original perspective. I really want to tell people, when you present anybody's perspective from the Eastern cultures, because they come from Eastern world, in the West, we should never harm the original elements, and then we should be able to find out a different way to present it to the people here.
I like that.
But some people, they harm it, and then they they do it in an unauthentic way. I don't like that.
Yeah.
So the thing is that, let's say if you present yoga here, what kind of yoga people like, how people like yoga, and when you plan that, your yoga projects, yoga courses, you should not harm the elements of yoga, and then you're going to make that happen here. So also the Buddhist teachings like meditation, mindfulness, compassion, kindness, and other, like nowadays people have a big topic, moderation in life. So that's called middle path. Buddha said we should have moderation in eating, talking, living, studying, everything. But when you bring it to a different continent, you should know how not to harm the sensibility of the people in that part of the world, and where you take that particular teaching from. Yeah.
Interesting.
So I like appropriation, but in a better way,
Yeah.
So that's my understanding.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I like the idea of incorporating, but appreciating the roots.
Yeah.
It allows for more perspectives.
Yeah, and without changing the authentic elements of that. That's more important. Appreciation and respecting the elements. If somebody wants to change in a way you are not stripping out the authenticity. That would be the nicest thing.
Yeah.
I think it's about the presentation.
Yeah.
It's a presentation problem, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the easiest thing to accomplish, but certainly a good thing to keep in mind and to strive for.
Yeah, at least we can try. People can try.
Yeah.
Rather trying to see just the immediate commercial benefits,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because something is lost when that happens, like more than, well, I would say probably the most important thing is it's detrimental to the way of life, but also something like, I imagine something is lost to the people who could benefit from it. So interesting. This is kind of a fun question. Just I hope it's a fun question. Please feel free to say I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite concepts in various cultures that I've studied is that of the trickster. So my question to you, have you encountered Mara in your life at all? Is there any example where you can say like, yeah, that was a big deal for me? And again, feel free, I don't want to share that. That's completely understandable. I can imagine that might be a personal thing.
For those individuals who might not know who that is,
fair enough.
What that is, I would like to,
of course, yes, please do.
Explain a little bit of the Mara concept in the Buddhist teachings.
Please.
In the Buddhist teachings, Mara is fivefold. Five Maras. Five kind of Maras.
Oh, 5 kinds.
5 kinds of Maras.
Okay.
So there is still a debate about whether Mara is a concept or a person. But in some texts, he was a person. He likes people die with sensual pleasures. He doesn't like people die by uprooting the defilements.
Mm-hmm.
One day I will tell you an example. There was a monk who was trying to who's trying meditation, and he actually failed in his meditation. So what he did was he was cutting his throat off with a kind of a scissor or something at that time. So so Mara was very happy. So in this example, he was a person I understand.
Yeah.
He was happy. The monk is gonna die with pleasures because frustration and pleasures, they are both
similar concepts.
two ends of the understanding.
Yeah.
He's so happy, so he's gonna die. He failed, but when the monk was cutting his throat off with that kind of a scissor, whatever the thing, he felt pain, and he used the pain as an object for the meditation, and he became an arahant, enlightened.
Wow.
He died, but he was an arahant just before he died.
Okay.
So Mara didn't know what really happened. He thought that he died with a lot of frustration.
Yeah.
And then it says he went up to the Buddha and then asked, hey, Bhante, do you know where the Bhante Godika was reborn? He thought that he was reborn.
Yeah. Mara went to Buddha?
Mara went to the Buddha and asked, where did he go?
Yeah.
Where was he
So
reborn?
did I win, or was that kind of what he was doing? Like, did he was? It seems like
he likes people reborn.
Yeah. So it seems
reborn.
like he was going to Buddha
going
and
to
saying,
samsara.
yeah. It seems like he was going to Buddha and saying, like, how did that play out? Like, because he wasn't sure.
Correct. Yeah. And the Buddha said, people like you never know where he went. He was enlightened. He was really unhappy.
Yeah.
He went with frustration.
Yeah.
So it's still a question whether Mara is a person or a concept. But anyways,
I often consider that, or I believe that things can be both at once. You know, I appreciate that things can be multifaceted from different perspectives, and that to say one is one thing doesn't mean it is not the other.
yes.
I find that's a difficult concept for some, but I've always considered things like that.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think it'll be a little clear after I explain the 5 kinds
Please,
of Maras.
yeah. Sorry to
So
interrupt.
there are 5 kinds of Maras in the Buddhist text. The first Mara we call him as. Let me think about.
Please.
Kandamara. So Kandamara is Buddha says that because we carry physical bodies, because this physical body is prone to sensual pleasures. We want a comfortable place, comfortable people, comfortable eatables, drinkables. So this body prompts us to objects. It is a Mara. So because everybody who carries a body is a Mara, be that an animal or whoever. That's one perspective of Mara. Second is Kilesa Mara. Kilesa means defilements. Because individuals who have a body and a mind carry defilements in their life pursuits. Because of that, they become Mara. So the first thing is because beings carry a body, because beings carry a mind. Kandamara, Kilesamara. And then there's Abhisankara Mara. Abhisankara means karma. If there's a being, that means somebody who is traversing in the samsara. So because of that this traversing, that person always makes karma, good bad mixture of karmas. Because beings accumulating karmas, they represent one of the maras. So body, mind, karma. The fourth one is the Mara of the death. Like, let's say Mara is waiting your death. Means people say, the text says death is executed by the Mara. So there is someone who is responsible for everybody's death. And the fifth one is a deity, is a heavenly being in one of the heavens in Buddhism. There are 6 heavens. He is the leader of 2 higher heavens. We call them Nimman Rati, Paramitava. He's a good being, but he's still a Mara. So anyways, this 5-fold concept means Mara is different. So Mara, whether Mara is a concept or a person, still in debate in this scholarly conversation. Some people compare Mara to Satan in Christianity. Some people, like, there are different things, but I would because you asked me in a personal level, I would say, who would I call a Mara? I would say any pleasurable things that try to take my attention. I would have to personally call such things Mara subjects. So I had to be careful,
Yeah.
So that's a place where you're gonna deviate from your path. So if you let them do that, but if you are really moderate in your understanding, and you know where to go, where not to go, so such things.
I like that. And it certainly sounds a lot more like the idea of the trickster concept that I am more understanding of, that I'm more that I've given more thought. It is a concept I've given a lot of thought in my life. And I like, as you described, the fivefold Mara has aspects that are, very human in nature. Very substantial might not be the right word, but yeah, very human, very central, very integral to human nature.
Not even the human nature. It's the nature of any being. It could be an animal.
Fair.
It could be basically humans, and even the deities. They also, in the heavenly beings, in the heavenly places, they also get caught up in sensual pleasures. So it's a problem for all the beings. Buddha talks about 31 places where beings born. 31 places. So samsara to us is a journey which goes through 31 places. In this life, we all became humans. Next life, we could be somebody else, another being. So it's really, really something specific to every being, in a smaller scale, in a larger scale. Yeah.
Interesting. It's a really cool concept.
Yeah, it's so natural too.
Yeah, that's a good word for it. Very natural.
Very natural.
Yeah.
Like an instinct.
Yes, instinctual, which is, again, very similar to, very, very much in line with my understanding of the trickster concept. It's the embodiment of chaos, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's more indicative of the balance between the two.
It's not a bad thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's a necessary thing.
Yeah,
it's the thing. Contrast.
But moderation is always
of
good.
Course, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mentioned that one of the most important concepts that I've come across in my life is that of perspective. The other one is that of balance. So that's kind of how I think of the trickster concept, as this element of balance.
Yes.
Sometimes it's a very abrupt catalyst, but other times it's just a constant, humming in the background. But it's pervasive nevertheless. Interesting.
I think the fundamental element of the middle path is balance.
Yes.
Always find a balance between your body and mind. Food, studies, everything.
Yeah.
The balance is the key to everything.
Yeah. I like that. I think I'll be working on that my whole life, but it's a concept I love.
But the problem is how much balance is
much
applied
balance?
to different individuals. Different individuals view balance differently. But balance is always a key to any individual.
Yeah, that's fair, right? Because as you mentioned, probably close to the beginning of our conversation, different people have different strengths. Like somebody could sit down and start on the Vipassana right away, so they've already achieved balance in one aspect or something close to balance. They're closer to balance in one aspect. So, different strengths and weaknesses between people. It's very interesting. What would you say, honestly, just what wisdom could you offer me and my peers, my classmates, for our individual quests for enlightenment, for wisdom, or for whatever version we consider? What wisdom can you offer to me? I'd be honored to learn something new. Like, teach me something.
I think the Vipassana teaching that I explained to you could be the best to everybody, regardless of faiths, cultures, countries. Because if we improve our Vipassana mentality, a mentality which has openness to changes, dissatisfactions, at the same time non-identification, because all the time we construct objects between us and the other things. So I think if everybody can have a balance, have a favorable, pleasing understanding about, mindful understanding about this Vipassana mentality, that will certainly help develop everyone's life, be that education, work life, everything. That's the best wisdom I can say to any person from the Buddhist teachings.
So just
Vipassana.
Yeah, just an across the board help with everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the motto of this understanding is we should be able to see things as they are, not seeing things as we are. So if we can put that as our slogan, seeing, I always want to see things as they are.
I think I'm going to make that the title of the assignment, things as they are. I like that.
That's Vipassana.
Very
so
good.
I think that small wisdom, I think it's a huge wisdom, but in a sentence it could be a couple words, but that I think recaps everything of what we've been talking so far.
I love it. Well, Bhante, Dr. Chandima, thank you so much for agreeing to meet with me today. I really enjoyed our talk. Just thank you so much. It was wonderful.
Thank you for coming over to our place and then interviewing me. And I think it's a privilege for me.
I appreciate it. Privilege to me as well.
Yeah, and I hope that your project will be a success. And wish you good luck.
Thank you very much. So you can call my professor if I don't get an A, right? You tell him I deserve an A. All right, well, thank you very much.
No problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.